right, here we go. This is the first episode of All's I'm Saying, episode 1, A New Hope.
A New Hope.
Or 4 dopes. So go ahead, Mike.
Oh, okay, so this is something I didn't put a lot of thought into it. This is just something that like came up kind of organically yesterday. So I'm 40. Oh man, I just turned 49. I can't believe that. Anyway, and married.
Welcome to the club.
Yeah, that's getting up there. I have a daughter. It's going to be 6 in May. So she's in kindergarten, and we've been doing the virtual. Well, we're in Montgomery County, Maryland. Been doing the virtual school thing, or as we call it here, the virtual not learning. It's just been like pretty difficult. So I am definitely one of the people that have been crying and jumping up and down about getting the kids back in school. So yesterday, I get a text from Montgomery County Schools that they're restarting and having kids coming back. And for kindergarten kids, it's going to be March 15th. So I would think that like my initial reaction would be like, fantastic, that's so great. But all of a sudden I'm on the other side of it. I'm like, I can't believe they're going to get the kids back this quick, because I'm reading through like everything that they're saying, how it's going to be with the masking and the distancing. And it's like, long story short, and Zeus asked me to upload the PDF, which I'll do. I just didn't have your email address, Zeus, so I'll give that to you guys. But my concern is that when I'm reading through this like return plan, I just feel like they're going to be teaching our kids like all this fear. Like it's all like, make sure you're masked, make sure you're, this distance, you can't do this, you can't do that. And it's like 56 pages long, and they don't even get into like the actual schooling of it. So I'm like, we're sending these kids back and they're just going to be like indoctrinated into this like fear culture, like, yeah. And again, I could be totally overreacting. I'm being completely hypocritical because I'm the first one that was like, man, we got to get these kids back to school. And now I'm complaining about, I get that part of it. But after reading like what the plan is and how they're doing stuff, I don't know. I just feel helpless a little bit. It's like, this is my kid. Like, I want to do what's best for her. And
you're going to move out?
No. Haven't done that yet. But no, I mean, just like, I don't want to send her into an environment that is like, fear factory incorporated. And it feels like, again, reading through this PDF, it just sounds like that's what it is. Like, the main goal is we're going to talk about, COVID all the time. It's all about like following the rules.
Yeah, it feels like an indoctrination.
It's like I don't know. It just doesn't seem like it has a lot to do with education. It has a lot to do with like behavior modification, like like making sure everybody's doing what they're supposed to do. And now the school that she's in, that we have her enrolled in, is a Spanish language immersion school. Mm-hmm. So she's, obviously we're not Spanish as first language, so it's like Spanish as a second language. So everyone's wearing a mask. So a lot of like learning language has to do with like being
yours, right?
And I don't know. I don't really have an answer. I'm not sitting here like sitting on one side of the fence. I'm more concerned with myself. And Zeus knows me pretty well. And I'm not normally one who's at a loss for words, but
so what are they saying?
I feel hypocritical about like wanting her to go back and being like, why aren't we going back to schools? Like, let's follow the science. If we're following science, and they finally say, okay. And now I'm like sitting here like, is how they're doing it the best way? Like, I don't know.
No, I don't think so. I like when you're talking about it, I'm picturing that scene from The Wall
where the kids are just going down the conveyor belt and dropping into the meat grinder. It just, this whole conformity, we're just getting so complacent, and
But she,
whatever they say, we do.
and the thing is, like, she definitely needs the social interaction, you know? I mean, it's like one of those things, like, so she's like 5.5 years old. She still picks her nose, you know? And I remember, like, when I was a kid, one of the things that cures that is when you go to school and the other kids are like, you're picking your nose, right? And so, like, when you're like learning from home, you don't get that kind of
So
thing.
she's gonna be like 37 going out on a date and picking her nose.
Still picking her nose. Right. So, I mean, again, to me, it's a net positive, but I just, I don't know, man. I mean, it's like, again, I should have been more prepared and sent this to you guys ahead of time, but I'm reading through this 56-page PDF, and it's like 95%
56 pages.
how we're fighting COVID and like 4% about school, you know? And I'm like, what am I sending her into? Like, I don't want her to come home like totally fearful and like freaking out. And I don't even, do you guys have younger kids, or like how old are you guys?
Everybody here has kids.
Okay. So I don't know. I mean, again, she's 5.5, so it's kindergarten. And I've always, throughout this entire year, I've been like, well, it's just kindergarten, right? I mean, it's not, I mean, I have nephews that are older, you know, and I really feel for them. I mean, especially the ones in high school, because I'm like, man, that's got to suck, like missing all this cool stuff in high school.
Yeah. What do you guys think? Are you going to send yours back
What
to
do you guys
school?
even do? Are your kids going back to school? Are they in private school, or?
Yeah, I've got.
No, we're going to be doing
daughter.
homeschooling at first.
Yeah. And
On
she's
March
going
1st?
back
So-
on Tuesday.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Anna?
Yeah.
Oh, I
No,
won't use
She
names.
had started back to the hybrid last year. They called it off after like a few weeks, but she's starting back up again on next Tuesday. And then Daniel's, my 11-year-old, is going to go back early March.
Mhm.
So
How have they been? How have they been with the virtual learning?
I think they've done okay with the virtual. They just go into their rooms. It was funny, like the first day I set up like a table over here by my desk so I can keep an eye on them, had all their books and everything here. That lasted like a day and a half. They just ran off to their rooms. Like, see you
You
later,
have
Dad.
no idea, Mike. You and Darcy have no idea what's coming for you. If this keeps going, it's murder. Right, Tom? Back me up here.
What's murder?
We're not teachers. We're
Well,
warehouse
no.
guys and nurses and computer guys and
Here's what's been going on. So
decorators.
my wife who is home has turned into a teacher, basically, because the way this is set up, it's not like you can just turn on the screen and like a kindergartner is going to like totally go through this whole thing by themselves. Like, they have to have an adult like right there. So it's not just like the child that's going through this. It's I'm going to work. I mean, I've been like working from home too, but lately I've been going into the office more.
Mhm.
So it's like that's her job. That's like what she's been doing like all the time.
It's a weird place when work is your solace, right?
Yeah.
I get it. I work on a mental unit, and it's so relaxing.
It's a break from the family.
I'm just like, I mean, my whole thing is, it's like this whole time I've been like Mr. Grumpy Pants, like, why aren't these people going back to school? Like,
Get off my lawn.
all the time. And then like they're like, we're going back to school, and I'm like, I'm not comfortable with this, like I can't be pleased, and I recognize that.
Here's my opinion. My opinion is like I'm kind of with you on the not at this point, because this sounds like school for serial killers. It sounds like we're going to be putting them into a place that instills fear in something that is we don't see. It's just around every corner. It's if you touch this doorknob. It's if you go to that restaurant. That's what they're going to be learning. They're going to be learning that there is an unseen enemy out there that is dead set on killing them. That's what they're going to teach them. That's my feeling. So I say, as much of a nuisance as it is to do it at home, I just feel like it's probably better.
What to do it?
Yeah, to not do this COVID symposium in our public schools with children.
But I think possibly all of that COVID talk might be for the benefit of the parents that are worried about restarting schools. And maybe when the kids actually get there, it won't be that immersive with the COVID talk. They might just be trying to convince all these parents and even the teachers that didn't want to go back that, hey, we're going to do all this stuff. It's going to be safe. Trust us. Maybe that's what it's all about.
No, safety is really so far from one of my concerns. It's we're the ones that are more in danger. The teachers are the ones that are more in danger. Honestly, my thinking is the way they should do it is they should open up the whole week to school. Oh my God, Darcy disappeared. Is they should open up the whole week for it, and they should split up. Half the school goes odd days, half the school goes even days, whatever you want to do. Do 6 days. So that they can spread it out even further. That's just a thought, but I mean, if I can think of something that's relatively a good solution like that, they can do better. You know, what did Eddie say? I can do more than nothing. Remember that? Oh, Mike, you weren't at that one, were you?
Mm.
Oh, okay. Eddie Izzard, he was talking about getting into politics, and they were like, "Do you have any experience?" And he's like, "No, but I can do more than nothing," which is pretty brilliant.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, I want to, again, you want to be prudent, right? You don't want to just like lie to your kid and be like, hey, yeah, nothing's going on. She knows that she calls it the germ, right? That there's this issue going. She knows that she was in preschool and that ended, and she's been virtual ever since and all that stuff. So she gets that. But it's sort of like, at what point are you okay with kind of I guess it is the indoctrination part of it, I mean,
I really feel like this is
like, I don't want her to be taught the fear. I guess that's where it comes from. It's like,
yeah, but
afraid.
Normally wouldn't we, we just have a bunch of deaths and we'd be wondering why. Like, let's say we didn't have science and stuff like that, right? We'd be like, why is this happening? And we might start sacrificing children eventually to, because the gods are angry, or, this is why it's happening, or it's those people. If we get rid of all of those people, we'll fix the problem. I mean, I much prefer this.
Yeah,
what
that's the thing
you don't like right now. So,
I mean, well, that's
I much prefer that.
So, Darcy, you're saying they should go back to school?
Yeah. I mean, but it has to be with that distancing and everything, because the thing is if it comes home, that's the problem.
That is more the concern.
And I was helping a lady with her system last week, and yeah, she's older. I think she's like 72 or 73. Her best friend was 74 or something like that. She had died 2 weeks earlier. Her granddaughter had come home from college from somewhere in Durham, North Carolina or something, came back, infected her mom, dad, grandma, and grandma's gone a few weeks later.
Wow.
So she wasn't showing any symptoms, but like, people don't understand, like young people, even, I mean, people just don't get it. It's like, hey, just because you're asymptomatic does not mean you're okay. You can still be spreading this,
Right.
Yeah, I agree.
This is real.
And
and just imagine if this happened 20 years ago. Zeus, my grandmother's 103. Let's say she got infected. I mean, she still had another 20 some years, So
the thing is, though, it did happen like 10 or 15 years ago. 500,000 people worldwide died from, I want to say it was
right, and it just disappeared. It
Right.
just disappeared.
But then you have the Spanish flu, 1918. 50 million, I believe, died. That was 2/3 of the
And that
world's
happened,
population.
was that a 2-year period or a 3-year period?
Yeah,
That was
yeah.
Like two,
50 million.
two.
It
There's
was
a couple waves.
two-thirds of the world's population. That means 2 out of 3 people.
Yeah,
that
my
know-
grandfather lost his little brother
Hmm?
with that. My
Yeah, so-
grandfather lost his little brother with
So
that.
it's like this. I get it. I have this conversation all the time, and I do appreciate that people are dying. I get it, but we're being led down this path of fear and puppet mastery that is alarming to me, because it's simply not as bad as other things. I'm not, and I do. Could it get worse? Maybe, but I think it's far more rapid spreading than it is deadly. It's unfortunate, but it is.
Well, no, Zeus, that'd be great if I could get it and then I can't be infected again, like it was like chickenpox or something.
Or like the
At least
flu.
then I don't at least have to wait until I'm what, 70 or 80 years old until I get shingles or something. But that's not what this is. And every time you get it, it's attacking your organs. You know,
As is
so
anything. The flu killed 85,000 people organically, no comorbidities, 85,000 people before this all started in 1 year, just in the US. So I get what you're saying. I'm not diminishing it. But what I'm saying is we need to, I mean, we can lead into what I was saying my topic was going to be, but we need to be a little more observant of what's going on. This has been monetized. Masks are now a business.
I thought the whole problem with this thing
Zoom
is
a fortune maker now.
So we're at home because of Zoom.
No, you know what? Yes. When something like this becomes monetized, when you're buying gaiters made by Mosum or whatever the company's name is, or you're buying these paper masks that we never bought before. And guess what? They only last 20 minutes. In surgery, they take them off every 20 minutes. They're not doing us any good. They're a placebo. Washing our hands is far more the safer part of it. I'm not diminishing it. I'm simply saying, yes.
I know, it sounds like you're diminishing it. I'm sorry. To
I'm
me, it
saying
sounds like you're diminishing it.
I'm not diminishing when people are dying, is what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is that the numbers that we're being given, and we'll never know, I'll never be proven right, because if it did come out that this was killing 0.0001% and that the numbers were hyped, people would be dragged through the streets and beaten to death like Gaddafi. Okay, so it's never going to come out. So
Yeah,
I can just assume I'm right and be there.
Just to clarify, like, my thing is, like, I get it's real. I'm not, I don't want to admit it. I'm overweight. I've got high blood pressure. I don't want anything to do with this.
Overweight and diabetics, yeah.
But what I'm concerned about is, life is risk management, and from what I was reading with what they're talking about with, at least in Montgomery County with the school system, it just seemed like so much intense sort of like overwrought fear. Like again, this thing's like 56 pages long, and it's all about, avoiding other people, wearing masks. And you're talking about a cohort like kindergartners that are like, I mean, their mortality rate for ones that get it is like 1 out of 100,000 or less. I mean, it's,
and here's
and there's no balance. You can't balance things with a kid. Like a kid is like buying it. It's like on off, and it's like, how do you explain, like, all the risks out there? And this one is just sort of like the focus right now. And, we're talking about like going to possibly seeing relatives. It's like, well, we can't do that because of this. I don't know. I mean, to me, it's just it's an issue of balance. And I feel like that there are certain people, especially like, the teachers unions, that are really like going over the deep end with this, like more than is necessary. And I'm about to send my child to be like in their care for 8 hours a day. I guess that's my concern, even though I'm grateful that they're going back. I mean, I recognize I'm like on both sides of this. That's why I'm bringing it up.
Yeah.
You know,
You're gonna say, Darcy?
I mean, how would you how would you feel if, you know, I mean, children are petri dishes, right?
I was gonna say,
And you work around them every day.
schools are like large.
You know, if you know, I mean, it should be scary to teachers. It should be very scary. And the average teacher, I'm assuming, is in their what, early 50s, something like that.
oh,
Some the average age.
Let me paint a scenario for you, though.
not for elementary, but
Go.
in general, yeah, I'd
So-
probably agree with that.
Even before this COVID thing, I've always said schools are petri dishes. It's just boogers and pee everywhere, right? To the biggest fear really should be them bringing it back to us. In fact, I would say that is what I'm more fearful about. Kids are pretty, I'm not saying they're immune to it, but apparently it just does not mess with them like it does us. And we don't even know that. 10 years from now, we could find out that it had devastating effects on them, but on such a, you know, long-term scale that we didn't know it. We'll be looking back and going, oh my God, look what coronavirus did to us. We don't know.
Well, the other thing is, it's like, again, this is not to get super political with it, but you know, as someone I'm in the construction industry, you know, I was furloughed for 8 months this year. I didn't have a job. You know, I was like not making any income. But all the people that are saying like, this is a good idea, we need to shut everything down, like people in the media, politicians, they're not missing a paycheck. Their children are going to private schools. Like,
There's a disconnect.
there's a disconnect. This whole thing, like we're in it together. We're not all in it together. I mean, there's people that are, you know, espousing, you know, oh, we need to stay shut down. We need to keep everything closed. They're not losing their job. They're not missing a paycheck. So, you know, on one hand, I'm like, yes, this is very serious. I mean, I know people that have died from this, but I know people that have died from a lot of things.
Driving.
The what?
From driving.
Driving. But again, this at a certain point, and last year, like last February, I was like, this sucks. This is a highly contagious, low morbidity virus. So it's like super contagious. It kills people in a low percentage, but over a population, it can still be a big number, right? Even though it's like a small percent.
And also, don't forget, it's not just the morbidity; it's also the injury. There's permanent injury from this too.
Right. Yeah, like all the stuff that people may have after they have it. Like we don't even know. Yeah. We don't even know what the effects of it are yet.
And I was just reading something that it sometimes hides in your brain.
Oh, I got no worries there. Limited real estate.
I was like, that's scary.
But yeah, I mean, but getting back and just to tie it up with a little bow, I was getting so, like, I mean, it was really anger. I mean, I would say like upset. I mean, Zeus, I saw Zeus in the fall. We were going camping and stuff like that. And I was just like, these teachers don't want to go back to school, but they'll go to a grocery store. Like, what about the grocery store workers? Like teachers are going and getting gas. You know, they're going on vacation. They're going and doing stuff. You know, it's they're still getting paid. Like, again, it's this whole thing of like, we're all in this together. But personally, I have not felt like we're all in this together at all, because all the people that are telling me that we need to keep everything shut down, they're not missing paychecks like I was missing paychecks.
No, and I'm a little insulated because my job is exactly the job that you want to have in a situation like this. Mine even more optimal because I'm not dealing with the COVID patients, but I'm keeping people that would normally run around and fling poop at people, you know, from spreading coronavirus. They have no impulse control, you know, arrested development. They're all 9-year-olds and 30-year-old bodies. So that's where I do my part. You know, I keep those guys safe, and by keeping them safe, I don't have them running into a place without a mask, coughing in someone's faces, doing a litany of bizarre things that could spread it. But my point is that like you were saying, it's politicized now. It's monetized. It's the arguing point for our election, for God's sakes. You know what I mean? I don't see this going away, whether it exists on the level that they're saying or not. Whether I'm right or wrong, it doesn't matter. I'm more afraid of what's going to happen after all this clears up than what's going on with it right now. I feel like there's been a paradigm shift, and it was a rapid one. And with your paradigm shifts, you usually want them to be over hundreds of years or decades. You know what I mean? Cleaning our hands after surgery, or before surgery rather. You know, things like that. They laughed at Jacob Lister for doing that. And then what ends up, we have Listerine. This guy was right. You should clean your hands before surgery, and there's less morbidity, less infections, things like that. And I just feel like this came too rapid. The change was spectacularly large. I'm not sure whether getting vaccines and all this was our best move. We may be allowing it to live longer and mutate. Who knows? We know nothing. What we don't know, though, is accurate numbers. And I'm always going to believe that. I'm always going to believe that one little conspiracy. They're now choreographing from it. They didn't make it. There's no conspiracy. It's just we're now being led to the dance. Does that make sense?
Yeah, am I the only one that thinks that the fear mongering is kind of decreased in recent months? Like there's no more screaming about, the ventilators, and like last year, if you said this was going to pass, we will be okay, people would jump on you. But now they're using phrases like, the end is in sight, the end of the tunnel's coming, we're getting closer, there's hope now. So the fear mongering seems to have dissipated, which is kind of the opposite of his 56-page instruction booklet. But that could be kind of, if you've been listening in on some of these board meetings, the school board meetings, and the one in Loudoun County was the one that went viral across the nation. That was us. Sorry. But they may just be putting all of those provisions in there as a response, because at these board meetings, people would continue, well, what about this? What about that? What about this? What about that? But they got to list all these things. Well, we're going to address this. We're going to address that. We're going to take care of this. We're going to take care of that. That might be why they're laying out that 56-page monologue thing, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, my sister is in education, and I mean, we're on opposite ends of things politically, but I recognize from the start, I mean, this was totally fraught. I mean, I have a lot of empathy for people who are in school administrators and school boards and teachers. I mean, it's a lose-lose situation that they're in, because it's sort of like everyone knows that in person is a better solution, right? I mean, obviously that's why we do it. But they also have a ton of other concerns, because there's if someone gets it, if there's a teacher that gets this and dies or whatever, it's going to be, this was preventable, right? I mean, everyone's looking at that. So I recognize they're in their education is a political thing in our society. It just is. So I recognize that they're in a crappy situation. I get that. I totally get, and I saw that guy from Loudoun, and the thing that hit me, like, I understood that anger. I mean, that was righteous anger, right? I mean, that guy was not playing. I mean, he felt it, right or wrong. I mean, whether you agree with him or not. I mean, he wasn't like putting on. I mean, he was pretty upset about it. I don't know.
I wonder how this would have all played out if everyone could have just worn a freaking mask, because when I look at countries like South Korea, 57 million people, less than 20,000 infections.
Where? South Africa?
No, South Korea.
South Korea.
Yeah. Because I was in South Korea when this all started, and I remember thinking, I can't wait to get back home because it'll be okay. You know, we're gonna take care of this.
Right.
And like because when I landed, they were asking me all these questions. You know, I had to fill out a little questionnaire about how I felt over the last, 3 or 4 days.
Mhm.
And this was on January 1st or January 2nd. I don't know what day it was really, because I'm not sure, right? But I filled it out and everything. Oh, and it had like a little threat, like if you don't fill this out, you can go to prison or something like that at the bottom. So I filled it all out and everything. And then I really didn't think anything of it until I think it was January 4th or January 5th when I saw the zombies in China and Wuhan. And then I was like, oh wow. But I was like, I'm here for another couple of weeks, so yeah, I guess I better make the most of it. I was like, it doesn't appear to be here yet. And I was still making fun of people. I thought it was odd seeing people wearing masks, right? And
when was
this
it?
one lady at
Like what month? What month was
January.
it roughly?
this is January.
Last January.
Yeah, last January. So on January 2020, I went to South Korea to start to do an assessment for a Hanwha to get an ATO that they wanted to so they can sell products to the U.S. government. But anyway, let's see, what was I lost, when you asked me that question, I lost my track of thought.
Yeah, I mean, you were talking about mask wearing and like how serious people were taking it.
Yeah. So I get there. Let's see. They have me fill out the questionnaire and everything. I think nothing of it. And I see the whole thing in Hanwha. I mean, in Wuhan, and I still don't have it. I'll get back to it. It's, who knows? Maybe it's the COVID brain.
I mean, one thing, like, when I see. And that, again, how it started and where we are now are like totally different things. I remember last December, I had a hip replacement at the beginning of last December 2019. So I was like kind of out of commission. I was like reading news. I was like more in tune with stuff than I normally.
He's got a hip corona now.
So also, best thing I ever did. Should totally get a hip replacement anytime you can. But anyway, I remember like late December of last year. And I was talking to my wife and I was like, man, there's this like whole like, and again, it was the Wuhan virus back then. And I was like,
Kung flu.
This thing's looking pretty serious. Like I'm trying to get this information on it. I can't get information on it. And at the time there was imagery in the press of people in China, like dying at the bus stop, right? Like dead bodies on the street. Do you remember that? Seeing that? I mean,
Yep.
But that never happened yet. Like and now I look back and I'm like, was that a put on? Like what was that?
No, because the same thing happened in Italy.
But were people dying in this, like just falling down and dying? I mean, maybe, I don't know. I mean, I haven't seen that here.
You can sell that all day long. I'm not buying.
What the Chinese government did was they just locked it all down. They're like,
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, it was freaking me out then, and I was like, man, and I remember hearing on NPR, this was like last January, and there was like a correspondent that was in Wuhan, that Mary Louise Kelly was talking to or somebody, and they had been locked down for like 2 or 3 weeks. And I remember I was like listening to it in the car, and I was like, man, can you imagine being like locked in your house for like 2 or 3 weeks and not being? It was so amazing to me.
Mm-hmm.
And this was like last January. But when people talk about like wearing masks, I look around, everyone wears. I mean, I'm in Montgomery County, Maryland. I drive around, there's people in their car by themselves wearing a mask. Like there are people wearing masks on bikes, running.
I've done that.
Everyone's wearing masks. So I'm like,
you know what? You go down to Florida, and it's not always like that. I see people, in a Walmart, no masks, no nothing.
That is the
grocery stores. I mean, and I don't even get it. Like what?
But they're not
just
worse
going
off.
through all the.
But they're not worse off
effort.
though.
How is that?
What do you mean?
told Mike
The
that
numbers aren't worse.
They are worse. They're very bad in Florida.
No, they're not.
No.
My mom's a nurse there. They're bad numbers.
That's not what's in the news.
I'm not
I can't believe anything that I see on the news anymore.
No, but I'm just saying. I mean,
But we had things like we had spring break, we had Sturgis. I mean, and these were all big events with people not wearing masks, and they were very proud of it. You know.
but what did
You
those?
know, so
turn out
they
to be-
took that stuff home. Yeah, that's how it got into all those way out of the way places. That's how it gets into super
Right.
bumfuck Wyoming. You know, that's how it gets
That's
to
not
those
a
places.
city in Wyoming. You're making that up.
What? But what I'm saying is,
was it
right now-
YOLO, and
I guess
what's
not.
the other
huh?
one?
But what I'm saying again, we're around the DC area. It's like, oh, it's like wear your mask. It's like everyone's wearing a mask. I mean, in
Yeah.
other words, it's like if wearing a mask was an issue, and again, it's like someone was saying like, you know, wearing. Now they're saying like you gotta wear 2 masks or whatever, and it's like, you know, it's like wearing 2 pairs of
Yeah.
underwear so people don't smell your farts. You know, it's like a cloth mask is a cloth mask.
That's,
There you go.
Well,
I'm just
I was
saying.
I always wear coffee filters. I put on coffee filters.
no, I actually just put coffee in my underwear so that it smells like Arabica when I fart. Back to what Mike was saying. Yeah, I was telling him one time because he was talking about the people with the masks in the car, and it always makes me think of like somebody sitting in bed with a condom on just in case.
Just in case. But what I'm saying is, to our credit, and I mean to like humans, like our fellow humans, our society, to our credit, in my experience at least, the vast majority of people are wearing masks and social distancing, and have been for the better part of the year. I mean, I it's rare that I see someone without a mask on.
That's
Rare.
weird. Isn't that weird? That's weird.
But what I'm saying is, it's like at what point, you know, and then flu has disappeared this year. You never hear anyone talking about the flu.
Well, I don't
Yeah.
know, because maybe what I have right here might be just the flu.
I hope
Who
it
knows?
is.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope you don't
That's
have
what
the
I'm
wrong-
But the thing, but what makes me worried though is, like I said, my own personal experience with the flu is it's like 48 hours, but I don't know if that's like that for everybody.
It's usually
Oh,
later.
Usually with
That's
COVID,
right. When I was telling you about when I first had the flu, that was like in 2003. That lasted for about 10 days.
it did. Wow.
And yeah, that was the worst. I mean, it was good and bad. Okay, so after I got home, you know, I told you, you know, it started with a scratchy throat, and I was able to drive myself home barely because I was so dizzy. I knew I had a fever, right? So I get home, and I was able to make myself some noodles. I remember that. I was able to make some noodles, so I was able to eat. But then the next day, I went to sleep. The next day, I couldn't do anything. I couldn't do anything.
Well, keep in
And,
mind the meds are different now too. So what
It's
you were
10
medicated
days
with
is a
then.
long time to have.
No, it wasn't any medication or anything.
No,
It was
I'm saying that now if you get the flu, they've got your Tamiflus. They've got they've learned more.
Oh.
Vitamin D. Vitamin D is crucial.
I
If you're not taking vitamin D right now,
take a ton of it every day.
yeah.
well, I
then-
took 6,000,
Yeah.
you know,
IBU.
Yeah.
units or whatever. Yeah.
And it's funny because they used to say don't take all the vitamin D because A, D, E, and K, those will kill you because they're not water soluble, they're fat soluble. So they stay in your body, cause a lot of brain problems usually because eventually it just floats up there. But now they're saying take 6,000 units of vitamin D a day. But the numbers are fascinating how the numbers work with vitamin D when you're deficient and when you've got an ample amount in you. The death rate drops incrementally. Vitamin D is one of the keys. I can't speak for everything else. Quercetin is another one. But yeah, it's the numbers with this thing are really, it's kind of fascinating. Joe Rogan has one with Dr. Rhonda Patrick, one of his podcasts. You got to listen to that one. If you listen to anything, that one's fascinating because she just nails it all. You won't have any questions afterwards. Take your vitamin D or be a dummy.
The numbers are really hard to compare when you talk about like South Korea versus US, because every country they keep their statistics differently,
They
right?
keep them close to
So
the cuff too.
close to the cut, yeah, and
They might not be
so I
telling us
mean,
strict numbers.
in the US, I mean, we're probably grading a lot of these deaths as COVID deaths when they're really like if you die of cancer, but you happen to have COVID at the time, then it goes down as a COVID death, so
Mhm.
on and so forth. So, but other countries aren't scoring it that way. It's not really fair when you're trying to compare, you know, apples to apples, but you're not.
Well, I mean, well, you're just saying that. I need to see evidence of that. I just can't accept that.
We go to the CDC, they say something about the amount of organic, and by organic, I mean you get COVID, you have no comorbidities, and you die, is probably closer to the range of 25,000. The comorbidities are crushing it. And I think we're going to find out at one point or another that the medications that people are taking are causing it. I've talked to you guys about this before, Mike and Tom, but there's a couple things. Keep this in mind. African Americans and Latinos are far more susceptible to this. Them and also older people. What do they all have in common? Diabetes, high blood pressure. Fair enough.
Low vitamin D.
Am I taking you anywhere that doesn't sound realistic so far?
Oh, yeah, low vitamin D. That's why the doctor told me. He's like in the winter I should take it.
But here's
One
the
of the
thing.
doctor that I was on with today.
So
Well,
African Americans, for instance, and Latinos are highly susceptible to diabetes, which leads to high blood pressure, which leads to certain medications, which also older people take. That's your lisinoprils, that's your metformins, that's your statins, all common. All three of those meds are in all different groups. Older people take the high blood pressure, which is your lisinoprils. A lot of them take metformin. Even if they don't have diabetes now, they're taking metformin because it's a really good medication. But I see a commonality there. And then, like I said, African Americans are very susceptible to diabetes and heart conditions, which also bring in the same medications. So I don't know why Big Pharma might be in it. I'm not getting into a whole conspiracy, but I'm sure they're not endorsing the fact that their medications might be somehow making our bodies more susceptible. Just a thought. There's a lot of things you can think with this right now.
You know what? I also, if you look at like the mortality rates, I mean, among like countries like Western countries, it's very high, and I don't know if that's from diet and
Oh, we're obese. Obesity is a big one with this.
obesity.
We're definitely the fattest country in the world.
I mean, you look at like countries where it's hitting hard. It's it's U.S., it's England,
Russia.
Italy.
These are older populations though.
Older populations.
Because they're more like the unindustrialized, they're more younger populations.
Yeah.
It's interesting. There's a lot. I mean, I don't think there's a conspiracy. I only think there's choreographing. I decided to give them ever thinking that there's groups of people that are causing problems. There's groups of people that are preparing for problems that they know are going to happen. We know George Floyd's going to happen. We know another virus is going to come along. We know another president is going to sleep with his secretary. We know these things. It's just when. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So if there is a cabal of people that are doing things to manipulate the public, they're not creating those problems. They're simply planning. They're saying when this puzzle piece meets this puzzle piece, that's when we throw in the other puzzle piece and manipulate the masses. I do believe we're manipulated.
That's when we start the fires with the Jewish space lasers.
No, I'm not going that. I'm not being. I mean,
I know. I'm joking. I'm joking.
There is shenanigans. Are there James Bond villains? No, but there are people that have self-interest and have power, and they have money to push for their wants or needs.
This is something, and I mentioned this to Zeus. This was like back there in the summertime when this whole thing came out in like March or whatever. When they're on the news, right? The reputable quote unquote news sources were saying this could end up killing 2 to 3 million people in America. So by the time, and this was when I was talking to Zeus, like during the summertime, and it was like, I don't know what, 150,000 or something at that point, maybe 200. It was like 150. And this sounds crazy, but I was like, glory, hallelujah. Like, right? Like, we should be thankful. Like, I mean, in other words, we're humans, we're on this planet. These pandemics happen. It's happened throughout history. You know, it's part of the human condition that this stuff's going to happen. Shouldn't we be grateful that it wasn't 3 million people? I mean, on one hand, it's like, man, it's super horrible that like all these people have died, granted. But there were a lot of people saying it was going to be 3 million people in March. I mean, a lot of it is perspective as well. It's like, to me, I'm grateful it wasn't the big one. I mean, if you look at something like, you know, back in, what was the last big the swine flu, which was not deadly, but it was like much more virulent, right? It was like much more contagious. I mean, I just felt some gratitude that like, man, I'm so glad. I mean, what if this killed 50% of the people that got it?
Right.
Right. I mean, I feel like we dodged a bullet a
But
little
that
bit.
did happen in 1918.
That's what I'm
2/3 of the
saying.
world's population. Yeah.
And it's like, but if you look at like, if 0 deaths is your starting point, you're always going to be like horrified. But the fact is, this is part of living on this planet. These things come, and we're probably going to see more. I mean, there's more people than there's ever been on this planet.
There's more people alive now than have ever died, is what they
Yeah.
say.
So again, it sounds cold because again, it's one of these things, and I say this to people, I'm like, you know, whatever you think about COVID or whatever, it's like, you don't want to say, man, I'm never going to say like, man, this is like ridiculous, because as soon as you say that to someone, they're like, my dad just died yesterday from it. You know, it's like, I've been in this. I've had, my aunt just died last week. The funeral's tomorrow. I mean, I'm going to look at it now. She was almost 90 years old. She had all kinds of other things, but that's what they put on the death certificate. What have
It feels like a culling sometimes, doesn't it? I mean, I don't think it is, but it feels like it. It feels
But
like we're just being cold.
But
We're
I'm just,
turning the
Look,
back.
what I don't want,
Yeah.
I don't want is, oh, you're 60. Now you should expect to possibly die from COVID. I don't want that.
No, who
And I
doesn't?
know there are people when they were, well, who does? The same people that were like, you know what, grandma and granddad should take take it for the team.
Yeah,
We
I
shouldn't
remember
worry about
that.
the economy first. That's exactly who
No,
was
yeah.
doing
That
that.
was
man.
crazy.
yeah, no,
Yeah, I was
Well,
like, what?
I think most people don't want that though.
yeah. I mean, what if,
Most of us are good and don't want anybody to die.
I mean, look at like, you know, I talked to my parents about like polio, right? So, I mean, you talk about like something that
I love that song he did for Dangerous Minds.
but you look at like something like directly affects kids. I mean, what if you have something like COVID that comes about in 10 years and it directly affect, like if you're 15 years or younger, it's like, you know, 75% fatal. That would change everything, right? I mean, to me, like one of the things with COVID that has been a blessing is that it has kind of left, and to your point, Darcy, I'm not saying like when someone's 60, like whatever, but one of the things that has been a blessing with this is it doesn't seem to target children. It is targeting older people, you know, more than kids. But what if it targeted like 10-year-olds or less? I mean, back in the 50s and 40s, people were scared shitless about polio. You
I
know,
will argue one thing, Darcy.
decimating people.
I will argue one thing. I get it, what you're saying, but we've been doing that with our old people already, sending them away to homes. In other countries, that doesn't happen. They stay with you and you care for them till they die.
Yeah.
And what did I do with my grandmother until
No,
I could
I'm not
do
saying
it?
everybody. I'm not saying you. I'm not even saying that that's necessarily wrong. But it's being missed. It's definitely not being handled well. They're not doing it the right way. But we have kind of put them to pasture to a certain degree. Your grandmother's an exception. She's 103 years old.
That's
Like,
amazing.
astounding. You're very lucky for that. But and you, I'm sure, go see her all the time. In fact, we'll talk about it later, but I think I should go with you at some point and just check out the nursing home she's at.
Well,
Look at
well, you
stuff.
can't. Well, I can't really go in, so I
That's
see
all
her
right.
in the window. And the last time it was on her birthday in October, and I'm gonna curse, but a bunch of family members came with me, and my grandmother goes, "Who are all these niggas?" So she doesn't even recognize me anymore. So.
Oh, I love
So
it.
but she's enjoying herself. We gave her all this cake and candy and stuff, and we watched her eat it. And we tried to talk, but she just, she's just eating and looking. So she's
You guys don't
she's
know
no
that
longer that same person.
I've known Darcy since what, we were 13, 14?
Like seventh grade,
My
yeah, something
he
like
was
that,
middle
12
school.
or 13.
And my grandmother loved him, and his grandmother loved me. Both of them were probably a little bit in their times. Like, I was a good white boy, but it was mentioned that I was white at some point in the good part. And Darcy was a good, black kid. We literally lived in those lives. And his grandfather was the coolest too. But I want to see,
Yeah,
I
I miss
really
him.
want to see her, because she was always so nice to me. She was such a nice lady. And the fact that she's surviving through this is amazing. But like, if you get if you want to get her labs and stuff and have me look them over, if you have any questions about her treatment, let me know, man. That's my gig now. I'd like to know that she's being cared for, because nursing homes are, and we could have a whole episode on that, I'm sure.
Well, let's let's jump to another topic. I'll keep you guys up to speed on like the school thing.
Well, honestly, I think we're probably at about the hour mark. You
Oh.
sucked up all the time, but it was
I didn't mean
but it was great. We all had, like, it was a riveting conversation. I really enjoyed this, and
Very
I
good
really enjoyed
conversation.
going. I still think that our first little meetup could have been an episode, but maybe probably not. But this was good. And so we'll do some business here. Let me stop it.